everybody, how's it going? Welcome to NoDQ&A video right here on NoDQ.com, as well as the YouTube channel and NoDQ&A videos affiliate, ringsidenews.com. I'm actually in a good mood for once because I thought that Raw was a great show this week. One of the best Raws in a long time. I'm sure some of you out there are shocked by this. Many of you expect me to be negative all the time, but here's the thing. When WWE produces a quality show, I will give them credit for it. I call it as I see it, and I really enjoyed Raw this week, and I felt that WWE did something right from start to finish, and they produced a good show. Got your questions here from twitter.com/AaronRift regarding Raw and other topics, so let's break it down here. First question comes from Sarah. Hey Aaron, what did you think of this week's Raw? Would you say it was one of the best Raws in a long time? Absolutely. I felt that everything, or almost everything, on this week's Raw meant something. It felt like the writers were actually putting some thought into not only the matches and the storylines, but the backstage segments as well. And the show just had a good flow from start to finish. I like the fact that Shane McMahon was more involved in the segments this week, and it gave the storyline more credibility that he's running Raw. Last week, he just was out there for that one segment with Vince, and then he disappeared. But this week, he was more involved. He would come out and announce matches and stipulations, and then he would go backstage and talk to some of the competitors. Shane had a bigger role, and it felt like he was running the show. That was a positive. I thought that the matches were really strong on this show. I enjoyed Kevin Owens versus Cesaro, and I thought that AJ versus Sami Zayn was a great match, one of the best Raw TV matches in a long time, and I'll get to that more in a few minutes here. I enjoyed the backstage segments. I thought that Miz and Maurice had a good segment. I also liked the fact that you had AJ and Sami Zayn backstage talking about their match afterwards. And even the Dr. Phil segments were better than I was anticipating. I mean, I had very low expectations, and the segments were not bad. They were tolerable. I also enjoyed the highlight reel with Chris Jericho and Dean Ambrose. I liked the fact that Jericho was interviewing himself. I thought that that was well done. And even the stuff with Roman Reigns and the Wyatt family, now that they're baby faces, you know, at least we had a storyline, and there was some intrigue with the main event to see how Roman Reigns and Bray Wyatt would coexist. All in all, it was a very solid show, and I wasn't really bored with it at any point. And of course, the debut of the guys from New Japan Pro Wrestling, Carl Anderson and Doc Gallows, and I'll get to that more in a few minutes here. Got this question from Mob Barley. Do you think WWE are putting Reigns versus AJ in Chicago because AJ is such a good wrestler and will make Roman look good? I could definitely see that being the case. I mean, you look back to last year, Daniel Bryan versus Roman Reigns. They had a really good pay-per-view main event, and maybe WWE is trying to recreate that. You know, I mentioned in the last video, I would be very surprised if AJ wins the WWE title, but I will say the build for it so far has been strong. And I like the fact that WWE is sticking to doing a one-on-one match instead of adding Sami Zayn to the mix. I think one-on-one match is stronger. And also I like the fact that AJ, as the number one contender, actually won a match as the number one contender. It builds him up and makes him a credible challenger for the champion. So I definitely feel that that was the right decision. Got this question here from Dirka Diatric. Hey Aaron, what did you think of Gallows and Anderson making their debut? Also, your thoughts on the highlight reel. Well, I mentioned the highlight reel earlier. I enjoyed that segment, and I think that that was solid build for Jericho versus Ambrose at Payback. And yeah, Gallows and Anderson finally making their debut. I thought it was really well done, them just coming in like outsiders. I saw people comparing that to like when Hall and Nash would interfere and jump people during matches. And, you know, they said that they had tickets. I thought that that was really well done. It was a good way to introduce them. And I think it was better to do it that way than to have them as part of the tag team tournament. Have them show up as a surprise and act like they're renegades and outsiders. So we'll see if they end up being affiliated with AJ or if they just stay on their own. Time will tell, but so far so good. And it was cool that Some of the fans reacted to them well, and there were Bullet Club chants. We'll see where it goes. Alright, this one comes from Jimmer. What did you think of the tag team division? I feel there are a lot of tag teams now than past 5 years ago. Your thoughts? Hashtag grow the beard. Well, I ain't growing the beard anymore. Those days are long gone. But yeah, another positive about Raw was the emphasis on the tag team division and doing this tournament to determine #1 contenders for the New Day. And I like it. I mean, it's been a while since WWE has done a tournament for a championship. I think that that is something good to do because it gets fans not only tuning into Raw and sticking to the show and watching it all the way through, but also tuning into SmackDown to see the rest of the tournament play out. So it's a smart idea to do that, to build up the tag team titles, give it credibility, give different people on the roster something to fight for. And I like it a lot. New Day have been champions for a long time, so why not do a tournament to determine the next challengers? I thought it was well done. This one comes from Mr. Yuck. Why do heels typically hold championships longer than babyfaces? Aside from Ambrose and Reigns, what stars could benefit from a turn? Well, I mentioned this before regarding the turn. I said that Bray Wyatt should go babyface, and that's what they're apparently doing here, and I definitely feel that that is the right decision for him. Now, regarding the championships, why heels tend to hold the titles for a longer period of time, I think it's because it's traditionally better for a babyface to chase the title. Once they have the title, it's not as interesting. You want to see the babyface try to reach the top and have the odds stacked against him until he finally reaches the top of the mountain. You want to see the climb from the babyfaces. Obviously, there have been very successful babyface champions like Hulk Hogan, but you know that pattern gets old after a while. The babyface on top and you have one heel fed to him after another. You know, it's not as interesting as when you have a babyface trying to beat the heel and somebody trying to knock the heel off the top of the mountain. Alright, this one comes from Tony. What did you make of Billy Graham's comments about Shane in regards to the Hell in a Cell at Mania? Comes across bitter in my opinion. Hashtag RIP Beard. I totally agree that he does come off as bitter, and it seems to be typical Billy Graham. He's always going off on a rant. Not really sure what else to say about it. I feel that Shane McMahon was crazy doing that, but at the same time, Shane knows what he's doing. I mean, yes, he is a lot older than the last time he did those stunts, but they rehearsed it. It was very well choreographed, and something could have gone wrong, but that's the risk you take. And if anybody could pull it off safely, it's Shane McMahon. I mean, the guy has the experience. I can see Billy Graham's point of view where Shane is perhaps risking his livelihood for the sake of entertaining the fans. Maybe he shouldn't have done it, but I mean, wrestlers take risks all the time. You can get hurt at any time. You can get hurt just running across the ring. You can get seriously injured, and there have been severe accidents over very simple spots. So you know, it's really hard to say you know, what is safe and what is not. You know, definitely jumping off the cell is a risky spot, but I think Shane pulled it off as well as one could expect. Alright, this one comes from Javid Rayman. Do you think Seth Rollins' return will be similar to Triple H's 2001 return? I could see it playing out that way if the intention is to have Seth Rollins come back as a babyface. Now, if he's coming back as a heel, they may not want to make as big of a deal out of his rehab, but I think he's going to get a huge reaction one way or another when he comes back. I think he should just come back as a babyface, and if that's the case, then show the clips of him rehabbing and let him come back and be this major babyface that he could definitely be, because the fans respect his in-ring performances and they've been wanting to cheer the guy anyways. Of course, he could come back as a babyface for a short period and then go heel again and bring up that he retired Sting, but my gut feeling is he would be better off as a babyface at this point. So I would go all the way with it and do the whole big comeback story with the videos, just like they did with Triple H back in 2001. Alright, this one comes from Mike. Who would you say booked Big Show better, WCW or WWE? In my opinion, I say WCW did. All WWE did was have him turn more than the NASCAR. He did turn quite a few times in WCW, but I will say that I think WCW doesn't get enough credit for how they handled the Big Show when he was the Giant. I mean, he came in and he was dominant right away as a Giant. He beat Ric Flair for the world title. He was credible as a Giant in WCW, and he was always protected. He was never booked as a comedy act or anything like that, where he was in his underwear or doing a thong match with guys like Aki Bono. Big Show had credibility as a serious upper card to main event level star in WCW. When he came into WWE, 1 month in, he jobbed out to Steve Austin, and they just gave it away on free television. They did not even bother doing that match as a pay-per-view. They just gave it away for free on Raw, and Big Show was losing right off the get-go. So, you know, it's really hard to say. I think that maybe WCW could have done more with Big Show and convinced him to stick around and be motivated and work hard. You know, Big Show, at the end of his WCW run, seemed to not really have much motivation. But I will say WCW did a good job with him overall, except for when he would leave the NWO and then come back and leave again, and that was really the only downside to his run in the company. By that point, you know, it was getting ridiculous the second time he joined the NWO for no reason at all. It was just totally random. I think their reasoning was because he hated Kevin Nash. It was silly. Alright, that'll wrap it up for this edition of NoDQ&A video. Stay tuned to NoDQ.com. Will WWE produce another great Raw next week? Will the momentum continue? Time will tell, but the only way to know is to stick with NoDQ.com for the very latest. And on that note, I will see you guys next time.